What's going on, good people? This is the Common Man, Nate Lewis, back with a brand new Common Take. Today is September 16th, 2017, commonmanpodcast.com. This is going to be a quick one here. Just have a few moments to get this out. But, like I said, I was going to be busy this week. Lots going on. I'm going to start off with a big story that happened this week. Jon Jones' B sample came back in from USADA from the test he took on I believe it was July 29th. As the date of fight, been July 28th. B sample confirmed that he tested positive for Tyrannoball and thus was stripped of the UFC Light Heavyweight title. The fight ruled a no contest, and once again, your UFC Light Heavyweight champion is Daniel Cormier. Now, a lot's come out in the last couple of days. A lot of reactions have come out here in the last couple of days, including DC was on UFC Tonight. I'll play a small clip of that towards the very end of this podcast. You can hear his thoughts on that. Matt Serra on UFC Unfiltered has come out and said Jon Jones should never set foot in the octagon again. Tons of tweets out there. I'm just going to give you my thoughts. Now, it's no secret that I was rooting very much for Daniel Cormier in this last fight. I'm not the biggest Jon Jones fan for a plethora of reasons. And when I came on here and I did the recap show, I put all that aside. The guy won convincingly. Post-fight was a very humble and seemed like a very honest response to kind of the end of the chapter is what we got with that fight. And when the announcement first came that he failed a pre or post weigh-in drug test, my initial reaction was, it was only a matter of time. But I got on here because despite about what I think about happened with Cyborg and her USADA failure test, at the end of the day, there's a due process. Everyone's entitled to go through the process. And so I gave Jones the benefit of the doubt doing this podcast. Now that the B sample has come up, it's also testing positive. There's still steps we have to go with this. However, with this now B sample tested and the results are exactly the same, we can conclude Jon Jones most definitely did have this substance in his body. Now, how it got there, that'll be up for another debate. That's up to Jon and his team of lawyers. I'm pretty sure you're going to hear something about a tainted supplement. There's been stories flying around that Jon Jones was sabotaged and someone spiked something in his drink. So we'll hear all that. But let's go back to what I just said. A sample, B sample, both came back exactly the same substance. Most definitely was in his body. And if you're going to argue the tainted supplement argument, you just had this argument a year ago. That'd be like, here, let's put this in for my younger audience here. You ever have something where your parents yell at you? You forgot to take out the trash. You didn't call when you're supposed to call because you were planning on going somewhere else with your friends. And you get this big lecture. You get punished, grounded, you get your ass beat. One of these things happen. And your parents force you to say you'll never do it again. What happens the very next time you do it again? You don't even get the benefit of, I forgot, I'm sorry, I got busy. Because it's the exact same conversation. So your parents really get in on your ass. Go hard. You're punished twice as long. That ass whooping hurts twice as much. You get your shit taken away. And it's not because of the act itself. It's because you were dumb enough to do the exact same shit again. Now, for my listeners that's a little bit older, let me put this out to you. I'm not even talking just your kids, your friends, your bosses, your coworkers. Something happens, just a discussion to be had. We're adults. Hey, this was wrong. Don't do it again. How infuriating is it as an adult to have another adult do the exact same shit? Now, depending on who it is, you're either angry beyond belief, you want to You're just so angry at that point. But you know what's even worse? Or I should say, what's the overwhelming feeling that you actually have is just disappointment. And that's what I had here with Jon Jones. And that's what I have when I hear the tainted supplement excuse. Like, we've gone through this already. Like, come on, bro. Like, you lost time. You lost money. Be a fucking adult, man, and do shit right. And I'm sorry. Some of you out there listening, well, someone's maybe sabotaged his drink. Are you fucking serious, man? Are you that serious? Like, if you want to narrow down who would possibly have done that, wouldn't they have gained more if Daniel Cormier had just won the fight? To me, that hurts his legacy about as much as this does. Because he's a cheat. He came back and had a okay performance, and then he gets beat by his biggest rival. We're not talking about a fucking spiked drink scenario. We're not talking a tainted supplement. We're talking about a guy who just can't get out of his own way. And it's really sad to see. As I stated, I'm not the biggest Jon Jones fan, but I am a fan of this sport. And whether I want to fully agree with it or not, Jon Jones is one of the best, if not the best, ever to step in the octagon. And it's a damn shame at the age of 30, the guy could not get out of his way. And we're not just talking the 4 years he possibly will lose, although I'm going on record right now to say it'll end up being 3 years. He's already lost a year on top of that. So here we are. We're waiting to see. At this point now, we're going to hear what Jon Jones is and his camp's going to come up with. I don't think we're hearing anything from USADA for a couple of weeks in terms of the actual suspension they're going to levy against him. And we'll just have to sit back and see. But as of right now, Daniel Cormier is the, once again, or we can't call him the new. Because the fight, this is a big thing here. And actually, let me get on this too. This fight was ruled a no contest. Now, what does that mean? Well, as I was having a conversation with someone last night, a no contest means there was no winner, but there wasn't a disqualification. To me, a no contest simply comes from a point where something happens to a fighter and they're unable to continue. Not something caused by the other fighter. Something freak happens. And all of a sudden we can't say someone won or someone lost. In this case, Jon Jones failed a test that happened pre-fight. I'm not certain how that's not a disqualification. Now, I suggested maybe this has something to do with possibly Vegas. Because if you look at odds, I don't believe, and I could be wrong on this, and I'll correct myself in comments in case I am. You can bid on all sorts of outcomes, but you can't really bid on a no contest. You can bet on a draw. You can bet on a disqualification, wins or losses by either party, but you can't bet on a no contest. So I guess everybody gets to keep their money in Vegas. Maybe that has something to do with it. Irregardless, Daniel Cormier is once again the champion. See, I did it again. Daniel Cormier, still the UFC Light Heavyweight Champion. And now the question becomes, what's next for him? Who's next for him? Cormier on UFC Tonight gave his explanation as to why he was willing to take the belt back. There is such a different level of money you get from being a champion as opposed to not being a champion. Now, I had posted publicly I wasn't sure if Cormier was just going to actually accept the belt. I wouldn't have blamed him either way. None of this is his fault. None of it. And you still got these fucking fuck Jones idiots that was going to call him a paper champion. Well, guess what? If your boy, if this is true, again, is a bigger paper champion than Daniel Cormier. Because he did have to cheat. But DC decided to go ahead and take the belt. There's been, I've gone out publicly and said Volkan. I've joined the hype train. I like the kid. Gustafson's probably the most reasonable, or the fight that makes most sense, put it that way. You really got a top 4 or 5 guys in the division and kind of lanes after that. Some people have suggested he move up to light heavyweight and reestablish his dominance in that division as a division that quite possibly, it has some intriguing matchups in it. And it would kind of get him from underneath this dark cloud that Jones has put not only over the UFC division now, but over Cormier. Cormier, up until a couple of days ago, had 2 losses on his record, both from Jones. Other than that, you can argue he's the greatest light heavyweight in UFC history. So it'd be very interesting to see. I don't see, obviously, there's probably not going to be anything before the end of the year when it comes to Daniel Cormier. So we'll see how soon he gets back in, who the next opponent will be, how UFC will decide this. I honestly don't think we'll get anything publicly from the UFC until after the Madison Square Garden show, which is their big baby. Right now they've had exactly one big fight card, and they need this card to do very well. So they're going to put everything behind this New York card, and after that they'll kind of let the chips fall where they may. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, and like I said, it's going to be a short podcast. I want to talk about the finals of the Mae Young Classic. Before getting into the Mae Young Classic, Asuka is coming to the main roster, dropped the NXT Women's Championship, and she is coming to Monday Night Raw, which I figured would be probably where she went. They're basically circling around 3 women right now on the main roster of Raw, with the 4th one being out. Meanwhile, SmackDown really does an excellent job with every girl they have on their roster. So Raw needed the help. They kind of shot themselves in the foot with this, with the way they've booked the women's division on Raw. But bringing Asuka up, you can feed her a couple of girls you don't do anything with. At least they'll be on TV, and you can possibly spur some storylines from that. So maybe this might be the jumpstart that this show needs in terms of the women to kind of get it going. So Asuka's coming up. There was rumors that they might crown the new NXT Women's Champion here on the show with the winner of the Mae Young Classic. That was not the case. Saw some stuff on the red carpet. They tried to get as many big-time female athletes there. Ronda was there. Oh, God. Now I'm forgetting the names now. I've watched this a couple days ago. But it was just straightforward, couple of clips. Both women get their entrances. Big dramatic lights. We get the match. And after some transition moves, some back and forth, Shayna pushes Kairi Sane back and fucking lays in a kick that was maybe one of the most disgusting things I've ever heard in my life. And that just led to the rest of the match being well worked and very stiff. At one point, Shayna gets the rear naked choke on Kairi. Kairi's able to land some elbows and get out of it. More back and forth, stiff shots all over the place. And it finally sets up Kairi, comes off the top rope with that insane elbow drop she does. 1, 2, 3. First time winner of the Mae Young Classic, Kairi Sane. After the match, both ladies hug. This match got a "This is awesome" chant during it. Really, really good match. Not the best match of the tournament, but just a very solid match. The fans were into it. And this was a SmackDown crowd. This isn't like your Full Sail NXT crowd, which, some people thought this should have taken place at Full Sail. This wasn't a typical Full Sail crowd. This was Vegas for a crowd that came to see SmackDown and then had to sit through this and then 205 Live. So all the credit in the world to those people in Las Vegas who they weren't sitting on their hands for this match. They got very much into it, very lively. Good crowd. Good job by Vegas here. Afterwards, I'm going to get into this too. Afterwards, you got Stephanie and Triple H there just smiling and happy. They hand roses to Kairi. And that concludes the Mae Young Classic. A very good tournament. Wasn't mind-blowing blow away, but it seemed to be successful. The format of doing the binge watching is something that WWE was happy about. Although, I mean, if this were me, instead of doing maybe 4 episodes and trying to do this in 2 weeks, why not stretch it and make it 4 and just do 2 episodes every week? And just kind of, spread it out a little bit more that way. But they seem to be happy with it. They're considering bringing it back for next year. instead of doing a tag team, whatever, the plan as of right now, according to Brian Alvarez of Wrestling Observer, is to come back with another Mae Young Classic, which I'll be fine with. Now, I noticed that Stephanie and Triple H were out there smiling, just as happy as can be, which is funny considering maybe, 40 minutes prior to that, Vince McMahon takes a headbutt from Kevin Owens. A legit shoot, real headbutt, whatever you want to call it, takes a real headbutt, gets busted open. One of the most sickening things you will ever see on Raw, or Raw, SmackDown, anything WWE related. One of the sickest things you will ever see. Vince is old as shit. Kevin Owens actually had time to rear back and lay this shit in. And 40 minutes later, Stephanie and Triple H are just out there smiling. So I'm not gonna harpoon too much on it. I found it funny. I found it to be comical. But I gotta realize this family's a lot different than mine. The McMahon family with Triple H involved. This is a wrestling program, storyline driven family, and that's just how it is. So that was that. I did watch some of SmackDown. I'm not going to do a SmackDown review because I also didn't do a Raw review. So I'm just not going to do those this week. There is a UFC card on tonight on FS1, I believe. I'm going to go ahead and try to pull that up now. I kind of slept on a lot of this. Luke Rockhold is fighting tonight. Let me see if I can pull this card up real quick. Like I said, not exactly the most star-studded, but should be a solid fight card. Uriah Hall is on this card. Anthony Hamilton is on this card. I'm just scrolling through. See if any other big name. Hector Lombard is on this card. So it should be Mike Perry is on this card in the co-main event. Should be an exciting card. Not the biggest in the world. I have my picks already. If you head over to MMA Droogs on Facebook, go ahead and sign up there. We're having as I stated before, we're having a contest. Most correct predictions within the year. There's some prizes given away towards the end. Some old UFC DVDs, things like that. Possibly a 6-month subscription to UFC Fight Pass. So my predictions are there. Check those out. I'll probably come back and just recap the main and the co-main event we'll say for Monday. We'll do that for Monday along with the Raw preview like I've actually been on somewhat of a schedule to do here lately. So check that out. I got to get ready. There's some things I got to do. It's a long night for me. If you hear back from me later on tonight, it's been a really bad day. But I hope your day goes well. Head on over to commonmanpodcast.com. Check out all the stuff there. If you like the show, want to support the show and the website, click on over to the sponsors. You know what to do after that. Follow me on Twitter at commonmanpod, Facebook, the Common Man Podcast. YouTube channel is available. The link will be in the description. Get some subscribers up, people. Subscribe. And with that, thank you guys so much for listening. Peace and chicken grease.